just your regular farmer's field in northern France. But 40 feet below hides a secret history, one that dates back more than 100 years. Tunnels were first dug in the Great War to attack and mine under enemy positions. They became a gritty part of trench warfare. But they soon developed another purpose.
The tunnellers moved on more to the question of providing safe underground accommodation and communication for the troops.
The Hulluch or Hulluch subway tunnels were started in 1916 in the wake of the Battle of Loos. Built by British and Australian miners and engineers, their reach was impressive.
At peak in 1918, these were all interlinked, and it was possible to walk underground from the Le Bazet Canal, about 6 kilometres up there, all the way down to here. Troops were accommodated in them, but in particular it provided safe passage for the troops. Call them underground communication trenches, off which you then had all the dugouts and the rest of it.
The Durand Group, a team of former military personnel, tunnelling engineers, bomb disposal operators and archaeologists, is now restoring the Hulluch subway system and giving us a fascinating insight into underground warfare.
This subway was built in between sort of 1617 and into 1918 because they knew that the Germans were going to advance upon us on their Operation Michael. So this subway was built to move troops along the line to meet points of attack and to move them safely out of artillery. But one of the problems with having a really big system is that if the enemy break in, they can move along that system as well. So to counter that, we come across one of these, which is a blockage, and it's a really interesting feature because we've not seen it in any other system before. It's brick built on a railway carriage with railway lines just running into the subway. And what would happen is, in the event that the Germans broke in and were coming down this subway, from either end there is a release mechanism which allows this to slide across and slot in. And there's a sniper plate round here which would allow the sentry to actually hold the line and hold the position. It's completely unique.
Troops wouldn't live down here permanently, but they would often work in the tunnels for several days at a time. And they came up with ingenious solutions to get by.
If you think about it, for every litre of water you bring in, that's a kilogram in weight that you've got to transport forward. So what they've done here is they've dug a well all the way down to the water table and below the water table, so that they can actually gather fresh water right here at the front line.
The tunnels were used again in 1940, when a redesign was started but later abandoned for a corps headquarters. But it's the First World War graffiti that's still so bold here. Snapshots of lives engraved into the walls.
What would conditions have been like down here?
Think about it, you've probably got several hundred men operating and living down here all the time, so you have that sweat and effort going on. Plus, of course, in the living areas they would have had latrines. There were cookhouses down here as well, so there would have been cooking smells, plus that constant risk of artillery fire coming in, so the whole thing would vibrate, dust.
And I suppose one of the things that people wouldn't quite realise is just how quiet they would have had to be in sections of this tunnel as well.
Certainly in the fighting sections that go forward and go underneath the enemy positions, any noise there becomes a giveaway, and the enemy will then try and countermine you. So they will actively seek to blow you up and destroy your tunnel before you get under them and destroy them. What we've done now is we've walked into the underground fighting tunnel system, and we're now in a listening chamber. And what the troops here would be doing is listening for German mining activity on the other side. And because we'd put in a lateral system and a number of listening posts, we could triangulate where the noise is coming from. Then what would happen is a countermine would be driven out, or we would drive a mine out under a German strongpoint and blow it up.
The Durand Group have big plans for these tunnels, and the near 3 kilometres uncovered here so far bring an unseen part of Great War history to light.
This major section of subway running down here for nearly a kilometre in fact extends, if you're looking across this field, to, you see that copse, and that was where the forward entrance was.
Lieutenant Colonel Philip Robinson, a retired Royal Engineer, is showing me just how far the Hulluch or Hulluch tunnels would have spread on this part of the Western Front, bringing British troops forward to fight the Germans.
Beyond that was the main defence line, and of course the other side of that, the Germans. And that area at that time was a mass of craters.
To truly appreciate just how much work has gone into restoring the Hulluch subway tunnels, you have to see them for yourself. Down more than 40 feet, out of the cold and into a temperate 11 degrees. Andy Hawkins is my guide, a former bomb disposal operator with 40 years Army service under his belt, and now a conflict archaeologist.
It looks very bare, but it would have had shelving in with suits and equipment and all the rest of it. Some of the interesting little bits and pieces that we've found, we've put in here. For instance, we have sort of classic 303 in clips, and one of the most common things we find are number 5 grenades. They tend to be unarmed, okay, and have just been sort of left strewn around the place. So what we have to do is sort of bring them together, collect them together, and then we move them out of the tunnel for the deminerres to take away and get rid of.
How was this when you first sort of discovered it? How much have you had to clear away?
Well, the entrance inclines, etc., were generally backfilled all the way to the surface and to the roof. So we had to clear so we could crawl through. And we worked our way down to the bottom of the incline. And once you get to the bottom, of course, you can start pulling the spoil into the system and just spreading it along the floor. But you're moving tons and tons and tons, 20, 30 tons at a time to clear an entranceway.
The tunnels go on and on and on. But this is just a fraction of what was once open.
So we've now walked more than about 10-15 minutes underground, more than a kilometre under those fields that you saw from the top here, and we've come to the furthest current point of the excavation of the Hulluch tunnels. If you look behind me, you can see the ground is sort of rising up towards the surface, and that's because this would have been another entrance point to the subway tunnel system. Now, the aim of the team over the next few months is that they will gradually start to excavate this, and this will be part of the big walk in September.
The Loos Big Walk is a 26-kilometre route across and under the battlefields of the Western Front, proposed by the Durand Group for interested members of the public.
This tunnel has never been open to the general public, and it is probably a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that we've been able to get permission from the farmers to have both fields open. We've got support from the mayors of Hulluch all the way down to La Bazie, the canal, and they are open and willing and want people to come and understand where the villagers stood in the battle.
This is just one of a series of tunnel systems across northern France that the Durand Group has uncovered over the last 20 years. They've also found the remains of 2 soldiers nearby here and helped identify their regiment so they can be laid to rest. Almost a century after the end of the Great War, they're bringing their stories back to life. Ali Gibson, Forces News in Hulluch, France.
It's nice to be back in the air.